bhunaktu sahadau bhunaktu sahaviryam karavavai tejasvinavaditam astu ma vidvishavai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May that one protect us both, may that one nourish us, may that one give vigor to us in all our works and our studies. May we not argue or unnecessarily cavil with each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. So this evening I decided, instead of having our regular Bhagavad Gita class, I thought, since I've just come back from 3 weeks in India, that we'd have something called Notes of a Pilgrim. And we're all pilgrims. Whether we know it or not, regardless of whether we formally went on a pilgrimage or not, we're all destined for one place, as it were. We can view it like a kind of mountain or any other different way, or a land. And when it becomes distant to us, then we know we have further to go. So this philosophically is called moksha, freedom, or from a devotional point of view, it's a vision of God, where an endeavor to go closer becomes more and more oneness. And so how do we elevate the mind and create the mind, or give the mind a condition whereby we can more easily access this which is inside us already? So we use language conventionally, such as we need to attain it, we need to get there. You know, on a long journey, there's a joke that on a long journey, children in a car will continuously ask, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Monotonously, because they're monotonous. It's a monotonous journey for them, and they get bored very easily. Well, that's very different from a pilgrimage, because we have to access our attention and steer it. And that is why I selected a title, Notes, because we have to notice everything that is going on. And there are various reasons why people go on a pilgrimage, but every religion has this concept of pilgrimage. The most famous pilgrimage is the Muslim Hajj. It's a huge, huge event, and it's one of the 5 pillars of Islam, that we should all go on a Hajj. There's a very basic principle that we should, in some way, dress simply and reduce our status to that of an equal fraternity, equalness and equanimity, whereby there's no difference between fat or thin, rich or poor. Any of these distinctions go away. And we have an equal opportunity to access our innermost being. It's interesting that the Hajj, it consists with a few events, but consists ultimately of this circumambulation around the Kaaba. And so we find many religious ideas are this idea of going clockwise, as it were, clockwise toward a center. In Hinduism, we call the center Garbha, or a womb, an inner entity, something that is within. And many temples are constructed like this, in such a way that there are a series of courtyards. South Indian temples are constructed like that, symbolizing going from the outside to the inside. And that's a kind of pilgrimage too. There are some people who decide to go on a pilgrimage around Mount Kailash. And that's relevant to Buddhists, Jains, and Hindus alike. And then there's the Camino, one of the most famous of the pilgrimages from this country is from St. James Gate, going across to the ultimate St. James, the Camino. And I think a number of you may have done the Camino. And there are various approaches. You can access it from the Portuguese side or the Spanish side. And it could range from, maybe a few hundred kilometers to 1,000 kilometers. We're stopping on the way. Swami Vivekananda sang a beautiful song to Ramakrishna, Manucharu, translated. It means, why do you, oh my mind, why do you linger in a foreign land? Why don't you go home? It's a bit like climbing a mountain. There will be dangers on the way. There will be thieves that want to rob you of your potential freedom. But there are good rest houses, that is holy people, holy places on the way. And you can use all the virtues at your disposal to climb this mountain. You don't have to be robbed. You have full protection. So all these concepts of pilgrimage are very valuable. And of course, Canterbury is a famous pilgrimage site, and the Tales of Canterbury are there, Canterbury Tales, which tell of the different personalities who also, like children, want to break the monopoly. Because we may have different reasons why we're going on pilgrimage. These same reasons would be the same reasons that present differences in kinds of virtuous people who decide to worship. Srimad Bhagavad Gita tells us this in the 7th chapter. It says, that 4 types of people. It goes, Chatur Vidha Bhajante Mam Jana Sukritino Vachana Artho Jinyaso Artharthi Jnani Cha Bharata Rashabha. 4 kinds of virtuous people. What are these? We understand that in Hinduism, and it applies universally, there are 4 basic aims of life. But to put it in a virtuous context, we have to understand it in a virtuous way. So we understand that there is dharma, a way of behaving that brings everything into harmony. Doing your duty and being a good citizen. And then artha, there is a question of wealth creation. You can't live on fresh air. And then, of course, there is fulfilling legitimate desires. All of these, says Lord Krishna, are valuable. These are all virtuous. But the most beloved is the one who is aiming for moksha, and in the language of the Gita, it is that the seeker of knowledge is one thing, that the distressed is another one, wealth is another one, but the wise do it for its own sake, do it for love. Ever steadfast and devoted to that one excels, and supremely dear am I to that entity, to the wise, and he is dear to me, mutually attracted to each other. So 4 reasons to go on pilgrimage may be there. You might be in a distressed condition and think that if you go to Lourdes, you'll get some cure or some benefit. Or you might think your bank balance is a bit low, and maybe the abundant Lord of the universe will fill it all in with richness, or improve your life or condition in some way. And every intention sustained from a thinker who is a cosmic mind will always find its way. Thought has a dramatic effect on the world. It condenses as scenes in front of you. And additionally, it has a suction, a pulling power, that pulls the subject of what you're thinking in toward you. So if you're thinking negative thoughts, bad thoughts, evil thoughts, the first impact will be physical. And then the second impact will be you're attracting more of it toward you. And you're conditioning the unconscious mind and building up an unconscious magnet for yourself. And at the end of the day, you then complain, why is life bad? Don't complain, you yourself made it. You put the order in by DHL and now it's arriving today. Don't complain, you yourself put the order in. So let's make sure that we elevate the mind. And one of the most beautiful ways of doing it is pilgrimage, because you then can take snapshots, as it were. You can take pictures, you can take movies of events and the feeling that you have. It's not like a virtual thing. You can replay it at any time, let's say during meditation. You can make it your runway for meditation, where you can take off on a flight to nobler heights. And so a pilgrimage done and constructed in the proper way can be individual or can be as a group. And so we decided to do it as a group, a few devotees, on the basis that I got a sponsor who wanted me to go there. And I said, only if I can, number one, take some devotees with me and or be of some use. So give a few talks, which I managed to do, in a guided meditation. I managed to do this. But title of this talk is Notes, so I'm not going to tell you the whole thing, because to do that we'd be here for hours together. And just in preparation for that, we've locked the doors. But there is a story, of course, that I heard about the Camino, St. James's Place, which is famous for its construction, beautifully constructed, with wonderful, magnificent architecture, and wonderful bells, we are told. But unfortunately, the star bell ringer once died, and there was nobody to ring his bell at his funeral. What to do? So there was a volunteer who said, I'll ring the bells because I need an income. I only have one handicap. I have no arms. And so the bishop said, I think that's a bit difficult, not to be rude or anything, but you don't have any arms. How will you ring this bell? And he says, I'll show you. And I need an income. Will you try me out? All right. They go up to the top of the belfry, and everybody's waiting. How is he going to do this? He steps back 1 pace, 2 paces, 3 paces, puts his head down and charges at the bell. And no more wonderful sound was ever heard. The previous bell ringer couldn't match this. But of course the man was a little dizzy, to say the least. Reeling back, and you could see his eyes pretty much went in a circular motion. And so anyway, Sunday was coming, an important day. And so in great anticipation, everybody in the town wanted a replication of this great sound. And so the dignitaries assembled round to watch this marvelous thing, and he stepped back once, he stepped back twice, 3 times, and 4 times. Unfortunately, the parapet was only 3 steps long, and so the 4th step, he crashed down, unfortunately, to his death. The police came, investigated this, poor man, and they asked the bishop, do you know this man? He says, no, I know nothing about this man, but his face rings a bell. When we go on pilgrimage, we require some kind of preparation, and therefore it's a journey not only to arrive at a destination and to assist with that, but it's also a journey which is in the companionship and friendship of the Lord of the universe itself, around us, stepping out with us every inch of the way. And so with this, we have this warm feeling of this companionship where everything goes well, even if you're going by yourself. And we may wonder why accomplished spiritual people still go on pilgrimage, but pilgrimage was something that Sri Ramakrishna did. He went in the company of Martin Babu, and about 1867, I think it was, and in a company of about 125 people, they all went along, with accommodation provided, hiring special railway carriages on the way, with great richness and show of richness and so on. And one of the places that Sri Ramakrishna visited was Kashi or Varanasi. And so the group that we went on, first of all we went to Delhi and so on, we'll come back to that, but we went to Varanasi, one of the holiest places that you could find on the planet, one of the most ancient inhabited cities, if not the most ancient inhabited city in the world. And it is a shining thing, and Ramakrishna saw it as a golden city. If you don't go with the proper attitude, what you'll find is, you'll find a lot of different, cars and traffic all moving in the Indian fashion. Indian fashion means there are definite rules of the road. The rules of the road are, there are no rules. So he who has his nose in first, he goes in, you see. So I told a group of brahmacharis at the training center in Calcutta that we can learn some good spiritual lessons from this traffic. First of all, we learned fearlessness. Absolutely. Don't tell me the Indian nation has fear. Absolute fearlessness. Even a child on a bicycle doesn't mind if you come within a few inches. Complete fearlessness. Alertness. You have to be continuously alert. It's an exercise in awareness. Don't worry about computer games. You can do it on the road. Something comes out here, comes out. You have to be continuously alert. And you have to be enormously flexible. Forget about the road rules. He who has his nose in first gets the right of way, and you push your nose in where possible. That's the idea, unless it's a bus. And then you see the most seasoned of the vehicles, the ones who are the experienced drivers, you can always tell, because they have war wounds. There are the dents everywhere in the cars. And the new drivers, dent-free. So that's another feature. And then the whole idea of being prepared to change at any given moment. See, all these are good lessons for us in spiritual life. But one danger, of course, is selfishness. If you push your way forward without regard for the other person, then you are cultivating selfishness. And so all this we bear in mind, that a pilgrimage is essentially done with an unselfish attitude, with consideration for the others in the group in this case, with an element of patience, understanding we're all individuals, and helping each other along on a mutual pilgrimage, because we're all on this journey. Shouldn't we help each other on this pilgrimage together? And so Sri Ramakrishna had this different way of looking at this busy city with all the traffic and so on. Of course it wasn't as busy in his time, but still he saw it as a shining city, something that was golden. He was even afraid to do any personal business there. He had to go out of the city and so on, things like that. And he had a marvelous vision, because you can go on the boat and you can travel from the one end, one ghat, essentially, to the other. And you start off where the cremation site you can go to, where the major one, two are there, but the major one. And there he caught a wonderful vision. He went into an ecstatic trance and he saw Shiva there, Vishwanath, the Lord of the universe, there, raising on the one side the jewel, handing it over to the Mother of the universe, Kali, on the other side. And there she loosened the bonds and created a freedom. Freedom meaning going into the indissoluble world from which you don't come back. And most people will require effort to do that, will require severe spiritual practice, will require, you and I will require years and years of discipline and training and grace, God's grace. And there in this holy city is a mechanism for your freedom, which is why souls want to depart from that city. So this was a wonderful insight that even the Pandits found to be a remarkable picture of the detailed mechanism for this. And so we were privileged to visit the Vishwanath temple, where high security is there now. You have to put your mobile phone in and you get searched several times and all the rest of it, because of the danger, you see, that such a holy site might be desecrated in some way or attacked. But it's worth it. And so this tremendous opportunity is there. So what is a pilgrimage site? Using this as an example, a pilgrimage site is a place where the vibrations are holy, where years and years of pilgrims have made it holy, where the origin of its holiness has made it holy. And in this case, where Sri Ramakrishna himself went, where Holy Mother went, where many of the disciples went, holy people went there, holy people are there now, and holy people will continue to go there. And it's to catch that holiness and absorb it that becomes a transforming element in your life. And this becomes a memory that you can revive at any time. Sitting in meditation, you can create this scene. And how did you feel? And what were the events? And what did you see? And what did you hear? And what did you touch? So all of these things are wonderful. Now, a lot of people understand their wonder. And so queues and queues of people are there, and hundreds and thousands of people go for this opportunity and to see also Annapurna and so on. So all of this was seen by these wonderful people. Furthermore, Sri Ramakrishna spent some time there, and he was lodged in a room. This room we went to see. The bed on which he lay is still preserved as an altar. And to sit in a small room, tiny room, where he was a wonderful experience. Again, you can catch the vibrations, the holy vibrations. Saturate yourself with it and elevate the mind. We should use every opportunity we can to do it. Is it easy to get this moksha, your freedom? No. 1,000 tools we need, and let's use them all if we can. Don't be satisfied with one or two. So these are wonderful opportunities. But then the other reason why I took the group there was for them to understand something, because there was another pilgrimage made by Swami Vivekananda. We can call it a pilgrimage. In the case of people like Swami Vivekananda and others, their kind of pilgrimage is to do tapasya, to undergo austerities. Not just there, we find it here in Ireland as well, amongst St. Kevin and all of those ascetic people, those people who went to Skellig Island and sat there in the cold, battered by the Atlantic wind. And they were keen to do it, understanding this is no easy task. With a sauntering attitude, you can't get anywhere. So, with concentrated effort, you then do away with the delaying factors called distractions and concentrate on spiritual life, which means a shortening of time. Concentration has two aspects. First aspect means all awareness of time goes away. A lack of awareness of time is the effect of concentration. Where did the time go, we say? It's because we were concentrated. Mind was concentrated. And so that's the effect of concentration on time and so on, and shortening of the result. When you concentrate, all your energy is gathered and pushed in a certain direction, given a thrust. So success is speedy for the highly energetic, says Patanjali in Patanjali Yoga Sutras. So to hasten this, and we don't know what the motive is of thousands and thousands of pilgrims. But one thing I wanted to show them was the effect of Swami Vivekananda's own pilgrimage. He was making his way to the Himalayas, as many of his brothers were doing. Brothers meaning brother monks. And he happened to meet with Swami Tapasyananda actually in Dehradun, which is another place we visited. And he got the news that his sister had done away with her life in tragic circumstances, and immediately it had an impact on him, because he felt the sorrow of the difficult situation of women in India put into difficult situations, maybe in in-law houses and what have you. And it touched his heart. Apart from him grieving, it made him conscious of the plight of the women in India. And then his traveling, his pilgrimage across the length and breadth of India made him sensitive. And he put this in this way: guard the wicked, guard the distressed, guard the ignorant. We can expand it, to all the impoverished conditions that he felt in his time, and particularly in places such as the foothills of the Himalayas. And it was these two factors that encouraged him on a lifelong journey to rejuvenate India and uplift the women of India, remove them from their darkness and their degradation. After all, are we degrading Shakti? And he felt they were. And then the other aspect of it is just the common people, to bring them out of their darkness. Man-making was his aim. Sister Nivedita took that and translated that into nation-making, which is simply an extension of his idea. And so that pilgrimage of his resulted in an attitude of service, a new kind of movement where monks would not just be dedicated to meditation, living in caves or small places, doing their austerities, trying to access their own freedom, but a spirit of generosity. Even if they were living in their cave, even if they become more and more advanced and developed and realized, those people of steady wisdom spontaneously will make that overflow for the welfare of all beings, because compassion will be accessed. And so it was, to express that compassion with an organized movement was what he felt was necessary. And so that was the pilgrimage then that led to service. Everywhere we went to a branch of the Ramakrishna Matan mission. And every one of those has an aspect of seva in some way, service to humanity. I have in front of me an old means 2017, because 2017 to 2018, so it is the latest, which gives you some insight into some of the work. To read it extensively would not be possible given the time, but to give you a few samples of what's going on in these places. Varanasi is a sacred place, not only because of its sacredness to all pilgrims, but sacredness to the memory of giants. And so an ashram was built there, and Swami Shivananda, a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, he was there living a very austere life. And the Advaita ashram that we stayed at has an adjunct to it, which is a great, great hospital, and many services going on there. But the temple itself was originally designed, constructed under the careful eye of Swami Vijnanananda, another direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, who had an engineering background. And the temple is wonderful. It's the first temple of the Ramakrishna mission, designed with representations of the 9 planets on it. The disciples of Ramakrishna are there. It is most beautiful, and the image that is contained in there is a marble image of Ramakrishna that was originally designed for Belur Math. And Swami Brahmananda, who was consulted, who was seen to be the spiritual son of Ramakrishna and knew Ramakrishna physically and in every way, he said, this is a very good likeness of the master. Unfortunately, it had a blemish, and also was out of proportion for the size of the Belur Math, and so it was given to Varanasi on the condition, said Swami Brahmananda, that you don't worship it because of this blemish. Nevertheless, it is there, and you can't help but see God there, and you cannot help but spontaneously worship. And so that is there, and a remarkable temple is there, not just architecturally, but in terms of this vibration. And then, of course, it's an Advaita ashram, so therefore it honors the formless aspect of God as well. And then there's a room where Holy Mother stayed. But I was most privileged because our flight was delayed. We were supposed to not only delayed, it was cancelled actually. And we were supposed to have flown from Varanasi to Kolkata. And the flight was delayed to the point of being cancelled. And that means that 2 events had to be cancelled in Kolkata, because as we flew in the following day, I was supposed to have given a guided meditation at the Vivekananda University in Kolkata in the early morning. And then I was supposed to have given a talk at Gold Park. Gold Park is a place where there's an institute of culture, and I can describe what that is shortly, but a place where people from all over the world come to research and study. And a magnificent series of buildings with wonderful facilities, library facilities, research facilities, huge institute, All of these are big institutes. And that was the only event that was cancelled because later I managed to pick up the guided meditation. And they sent invites out and so on and so forth to people to come and listen to this talk I was supposed to give. So that's the one side of Varanasi, would be this Advaita ashram. But because of this delay and this cancelled flight, the following day was Swami Turiyananda's birthday. As you may or may not know, Swami Turiyananda, a direct disciple of Ramakrishna. There's another place called Dehradun. 2 access places to the Himalayas are there, Rishikesh and Dehradun. In Dehradun, outside it in the mountains, is a small place, a very, very tiny, tiny room. And that tiny room, underneath a certain Shiva temple, in austere conditions, Swami Turiyananda did his tapasya. Fasting, japa, meditation, living in a cold climate with no proper clothing, just a simple cloth. Severe austerities he did. And just to see that is elevating to the spirit. Just as to see the environment of tapasya for anybody who does it, including in Ireland, in Skellig Islands and so on and so forth. You see that St. Kevin in the cave in Glendalough. And the result of this great tapasya is a great thrust of concentration, a great power. And because it is spiritual meditation and spiritual tapasya, it is also egoless. And so this great Shakti is used for the welfare of all beings. And Swami Vivekananda eventually persuaded him to come out of this solitary existence and be of some use. And ultimately Swami Turiyananda was over to America. Swami Vivekananda says, I've told you all the principles, but here's somebody who's actually practicing it. This great, great man, Swami Turiyananda. So his birth anniversary was the day of our delay, and I just happened, and he passed away in a room in Varanasi, and his great Mahasamadhi was there, and you can read, there's so many books on his life. One book written by Swami Chaitananda in the library you can pick up and read comprehensively his life. And all these great giants, their birth, their life and their death are all equally remarkable. And I happened to have been housed in the room just adjacent to his Mahasamadhi room. So his Mahasamadhi room was so quiet, outside all the traffic noises, but in this room, complete stillness and quiet, absolutely conducive to meditation. And so people came throughout the day from early morning to meditate in that room. And I went, but my own room was equally good because it was just next door and I felt it was one and the same. So it was a wonderful experience for me personally. Then the hospital which is there, just to give you a flavor for these seva activities, and because many of you have no idea. Many of you have no idea. So the bulletin here says, started by Swami Shivananda, monastic disciple of Sri Ramakrishna in 1902. And he lived in a small room, and that room is still preserved. And he lived in an atmosphere of tapasya with no funds coming in, no money coming in, and very, very meager food. Anyway, so it has for long served as a retreat for the old and retired monks of our order. That's true. But just to give you a flavor of some activities, a library, a free reading room with 20,000 books and 28 periodicals and newspapers, religious discourses and so on, daily worship. But now the home of service reads like this. It was started in 1900, made a branch of the mission in 1902. It has a general hospital, and I'm reading this, 1 year ago, with over 200 beds, 211 beds, 154 free beds, and having an operation theatre cum surgical block, 6,400 admissions over the year. Outpatient dispensary with eye, ENT, dental, pediatric gynecology, neurology, physiotherapy, orthopedic departments, and also homeopathic section. 1.88 million cases treated annually. 4 mobile medical units treating around about 28,000 patients. 2 old age homes, 1 for men, 1 for women. 4 units providing for poor children. A mobile library with over 2,000 books. 4 audiovisual units conducting health and hygiene awareness programs. Disseminating this information in 41 schools in 66 villages, and 6,200 people attending those programs. And then in terms of welfare work, pecuniary help, which amounted to 11.98 lakh, given to needy persons, medicines, given free of charge, provided to the poor and afflicted patients. These are just some of the activities, and just a sample of some of the activities that go on in one place. All right. So Swami Vivekananda's dream, because of his own pilgrimage, was realized here in all of these great, great institutions. We didn't start off in Varanasi, we started off in Delhi. And in Delhi, they have a remarkable museum, state-of-the-art museum, in the substrata of the temple. And there you can actually go into, you sit in a kind of seating arrangement, and you have something like a 4D presentation. You have these goggles that you put on, and the presentation is so alive. At one point, water gets splashed and a spray comes onto your hand, And so it's extremely live, and it's a remarkable place to be in. So like that, many, many kinds of exhibits like that, with the life of Swami Vivekananda and others, and Ramakrishna and so on. And technologically remarkable, technologically state-of-the-art. I arrived there in sufficient time for Kalpatru Day, which was 1st of January. And then on that day, of course, so I gave a talk on that day. And then the following day we went off to Kankal, means Hardwar, near Hardwar. One of our devotees who had been there before, well, it was, no harm in saying, because you all know Dermot, he was there, and he's been to India a number of times, but mainly the South India. One occasion he went to Varanasi and did not dare put his toes in the Ganga. This time he plunged his whole body in, and the water runs so swiftly, of course, it'll carry you away completely. So there are safety bars there, and not to be outdone, I also plunged in and allowed the water to carry me. If you don't catch the bar, it'll carry you all the way down to the sea. So I'm exaggerating, but probably more than likely, I don't know. Because the water has just come down, see, from the Himalayas, and it's now going on to the plains. So swiftly does it run. Those who've been there will know this anyhow. And of course the evening arti is worth seeing, because it's a huge affair by the water, and then people put these lamps in the water and allow the Ganga to flow. The Ganga is such a sacred river, and so despite the fact that people may say that further down it may be polluted and all the rest of it, of course there the water is of pristine purity. But as it gets more and more polluted, but there's a big clean-up operation throughout the whole Ganga by the Indian government to clean it up. And I noticed a big difference between 3 years ago and now. plastic, polystyrene, all of that seems to have gone. So those were some of the wonderful experiences there in Varanasi. But we arrived in Delhi, we had this, we went to Kankal, to Hardwar, and then from Hardwar to Rishikesh. The last time I was in Rishikesh was about 50 years ago. And I managed to catch up with an organization that I have great respect for. And the General Secretary, Maharaj here, had met in South Africa. They became good acquaintances and had a satsang with the President, who made me sit beside him and in his audience hall. And so we had a very uplifting, it was also quite a warm day, even though it was up in the mountains, it became warm. And the remarkable thing is people from all over the world come there. Now people go to Rishikesh and places like this, particularly from the West, to find something, not understanding that they're carrying what they need already. And the divine that they're looking for is already in themselves. And so the point of a pilgrimage for somebody who knows this is to express this and to see it in a different way, and to assist in accessing this from within. And then, of course, we went to a place called Dehradun. And Dehradun is a modern place, but there, again, beautiful place in the mountains, accessing to the Himalayas. I mentioned Swami Purnananda's place of tapasya. But there in Dehradun, which is just an incredibly beautiful place, and it sits in a kind of area surrounded on all sides by mountains. But there's a state-of-the-art eye hospital with some 4 floors. Again, the statistics are not in here actually because it's newer than this. But an amazing eye hospital. I have to go back to Delhi because there's a small tuberculosis hospital there. And one of the pilgrims who was with us, she was a nurse, but not only that, she was a nursing teacher. She taught at Queen's University in Belfast, nursing staff. And she was just absolutely astonished by the amount of work and the variety of work, because not just TB, everything from dental surgery to eye care, to everything you can think of, to minor surgery, everything being done there by voluntary doctors. And the scope and the throughput, astonishing, compared to the Western world, let's say Ireland, where you go to a doctor after waiting 3-4 months, a consultant, and then they pass you on to the next consultant, another waiting period, and so it goes on. Then you go to this hospital, waiting period, that hospital. Everything is taken care of in the one place and dealt with very swiftly. So the throughput is remarkable. All right. From Varanasi, we go to Calcutta, and there we meet with Brian. And Brian was in cheerful mood because, for some reason or other, remarkably in cheerful mood because he'd lost his passport. And the advantage of losing your passport, of course, is maybe you can stay in India indefinitely. Maybe that was the hope, I don't know. He felt he'd lost it at the airport, it had been stolen or what have you. So a great excursion to the police station took place, and Brian can tell you more about that than I can, because I wasn't with him. But he'll tell you, I think, that he had a great adventure learning about India at grassroots level and experiencing the traffic. And when we arrived late. No matter, the previous flight, of course, was cancelled, but then it was delayed the following time. And so around about probably 11 o'clock, maybe near midnight, we were collected, something like that, I think, yeah. And Brian was there to meet us, along with the organizing Swami, and 2 of the most fearless drivers I've ever met in my whole life. Because not only were there experienced Indian drivers, but they'd waited for us and lost fares, and it was late at night, and by the time we reached our destination, it would have been 1:30 in the morning, and so we were not in the mood to delay, but we got stuck in a traffic jam, and eventually got through that, of trucks, eventually got through that. And they certainly made up for the time by racing faster probably than any driver in the Grand Prix. Anyway, shaken but not stirred, we arrived at our destination and got housed in the Vivekananda University, which was not our original destination, but somehow wound up there. And with typical efficiency, it created much confusion because we had about 3-4 places to stay with 3-4 people organizing us and so on. And but anyway, we all managed to have a good rest. What is a remarkable experience is Mangala Arti at Beru Mat. You know, in the early morning, where the doors open in darkness, and the camphor is circulated around the image of Ramakrishna. The whole architecture, as you may or may not know, Beru Mat, is supposed to be representative of all the religions. So you have architecture representing Buddhist architecture, architecture representing Rajasthani architecture. For the first time, the mandap, the hall and the garba are not separated and put in the form of cross representing Christianity. And the whole thing is a stunning structure. And the whole campus is sacred. They have their own water treatment plant, but they're right there by the Ganga. And other temples are there too, Swami Brahmananda, Holy Mother, and Vivekananda, on the spots where they were cremated. So when you go there, there is the vibration again of all these personalities. Where they walked, you see the descendants of mango trees that were planted by Swami Vivekananda, something that the original remnants of the original tree, or descendants at least of the original trees, there where he sat. A courtyard where he sat on a cot and wrote many of his letters and thoughts, or where he paced up and down, where many visions occurred. No more sacred place can there be than this. And on this Kindle is a pilgrimage reference, and because of time we can't read much of this. But there's anybody going there should get a small book. We have one that we purchased for the library now. I don't know who got that, but anyway, there's one that is purchased which will arrive at some point, and it goes through all the pilgrimage sites, not just in Beru Mat, which are considerable. Swami Vivekananda's room where he went into Mahasamadhi, and the place where some 8 or 9 of the disciples, if my memory serves me correctly, that many, were cremated in one spot. And of course every president gets cremated, nearby. And we managed to visit the president of the mission. We managed to visit the vice president, 5 of them, but we only managed to get one. And of course, when we organized this, I joked and I said to Brian, because he's interested in going to Dakshinaswar, where Ramakrishna's drama played out and all his sadhana took place, a great holy place there, built by Rani Rasmani. And I said, yes, we'll visit there if we have time. Anyway, of course, the first day we went there, and we went there by ferry. It's a short, maybe 15-minute crossing to Dakshinaswar. And it happened to be a great gift because it happened to be Brian's birthday as well. So a wonderful birthday he had there. And you can see the room where Ramakrishna stayed and talked, and all the events of the Gospel of Ramakrishna, most of the events of the Gospel of Ramakrishna takes place in and around that room. And then the Nahabat, where Holy Mother stayed, in a tiny, small area, emphasizing her own sanctity and how she managed to get rheumatism by bending, because the door was so low and the space so cramped. Cooking was done there, guests were there, sleeping was there, everything was done there in such a tiny place. So the whole place is sacred and has a tangible feel to it. And so every place I've mentioned now so far has this tangible vibration. Now if you wanted to be quantitative about it, all these vibrations are building up, you see. And so from time to time we should all go on some kind of pilgrimage. Then of course, where Sri Ramakrishna was born, where Holy Mother was born, and a place called Anpur where the whole order, the formal monastic vows were taken by many of the monastic disciples there at Swami Premananda's ancestral home. And he also visited by Ramakrishna when he was about 19 years of age. Holy Mother stayed there, and so all holy associations. We visited there very briefly, but it was well worthwhile because we spent some quality time learning the history from the Swami in charge there, and absorbing the atmosphere and entertaining the mosquitoes too, because the mosquitoes were out that night, and they have a particular devotion for my feet. So then we had, of course, Premier Modi visited at that point, because it was National Youth Day. And being Swami Vivekananda's solar birthday is celebrated as National Youth Day throughout India. And so great events everywhere took place in all of our centers. And Prime Minister Modi decided that he would visit, along with more police than I have ever seen in my entire life. And so it just so happened that we had a different invitation with some relatives of devotees, and so we spent the day there. We managed to visit other holy sites in the city associated with Holy Mother and Sister Nivedita. And I'm looking at the clock and we have probably about 6 minutes, so I have to tell you that the Sister Nivedita, since we are dedicated to Nivedita, the house that she started off as a school with 40 students, which was in a ramshackle condition, and when I was there 3 years ago, it was under construction and there was dust everywhere. But now it is largely renovated and is in pristine condition. State of the art, is a National Heritage Site. And you have all these modern technological presentations on the one side, seeing Nivedita, you know, as if she's there. A beautiful statue to Nivedita is there as well. So all of that is kind of museum, but still retaining the original feel of her little school. In a time where the British had banned such songs as Vande Mataram and women's education completely, she made the children, encouraged the children strongly to sing this Vande Mataram every day and to have prayers every day. And the idea of the school initially really was to create an educational missionary school to develop girls who could then pass on the teaching to others, and they would teach others, and they would teach others, and so the educational movement would spread. In Nivedita's day, 0.9% of the Indian population, 0.9% of the Indian women were educated. They were literate. 0.9%. But nowadays it's only 64%, still a long way to go, but it's a far cry from that 0.9%. So 64% and gradually moving in this direction. Of course, in Sister Nivedita's day, she had to go from house to house begging, please, would you give your daughters? Give your daughters. The resistance to women's education was so strong that Swami Vivekananda had to threaten his own followers and associates to, if you don't give your daughters to Margaret Noble, I'll have nothing to do with you. If you don't give your daughters to this school, that kind of approach. And so reluctantly they started doing that. But then the movement caught on. And when they realized, particularly, that they were learning handicrafts and learning some practical things along with reading and writing, along with arithmetic, done in the modern way, a creative way that she was naturally accustomed to. It was part of her natural ability to present things in ways that were fun and educational. And of course, with all her educational experience in England, she brought all that to the fore. And Swami Vivekananda, at one point, I'm talking in the West now, and Sarah Bull, just as Sri Ramakrishna had transferred everything to him, he stated that he transferred everything to them. And so we have every reason to believe that Sister Nivedita literally carried out his work, that beyond Vivekananda, Sister Nivedita did the work. And such remarkable work she did in every field, in every sphere you can think of, in the arts, in the sciences, in the national awareness, in bringing out the religious and national culture that was there, that should now be available to the world. And so we shouldn't think that Hinduism, which is really Vedanta at its core, should be confined to a country or subcontinent called India. Vedanta has to spread everywhere. Buddhism has done it. To whites, to blacks, to Chinese, to everybody you can think of, to Americans, to French. This movement is spreading everywhere because this is the only movement that has a chance of reconciling things and answering every question in a way that is compatible with modern science. So Sister Nivedita did this remarkable work. We saw the school, we had a great tour. It's owned by the Sharda Mutt, and they've acquired some of the next door property, 17 Bosborough Lane. But to be in the place where she walked and where many of the original disciples of Ramakrishna went and where Holy Mother went, and then nearby is Holy Mother's house, which was acquired for her, where she stayed with a household of women disciples, to be in the same place where she was and where she lived, and ultimately where she relinquished the body in 1920. So all of these things are there. Bhagbasar, Balaram Bose's house, if you attend Swami Vimokshananda's talks on both on life of Holy Mother, you'll experience some events and some atmosphere of the Holy Mother in different places, including Jarambati, her birthplace, place where she was born, and the place where Ramakrishna was born is Kamapuka, there not far away. All these places we visited. And then to be in these environments where such great, powerful entities, spiritually powerful entities, walked and lived and breathed, echoes the whole continent of India, where for eons people of this kind of character walked and lived and breathed, which makes India itself a sacred land. So we are now just past 9 o'clock, and I have much more to say, but we have to leave it at that. Any further information, you can ask Brian if he's willing to release some of his memories. But I think all of the pilgrims who came got some spiritual value from it and got some upliftment from it. And each one would have their own individual memories and highlights and different impacts. That's the nature of it. So I suppose the next question is, when are we going to do it next? And so we'll have to ask, higher authorities than us on this matter. Finally, the last leg of my personal pilgrimage was with one other devotee, Dermot. And so I went to Bengaluru and Mysore. Briefly.
And Uti.
And Uti, yes, Uti, thank you. Yeah. So these are 3 centers, and actually this book lies in the library, and if you want information on any of this, I've marked all the places with paper here where we went, so that you can see statistically all the work that has been done in all of these places. Just a little bit about Uttakamund, which of course the British called Uti, where when it got too hot, the British went and made Victorian buildings there, beyond recognition since I last went there. But there we have a beautiful ashram up there in pristine air, about 6,000 feet above sea level, up in the Nilgiri Hills. On the way, of course, you go through parks where they tell you with big signs, you know, that it's a tiger reserve, beware of tigers. The only problem is the pictures have pictures of leopards. So, so I have no reason, I don't know why. Anyway, these are some of the quirky things. But of course in Uttakamund, among other things, Uttakamund was the place where Swami Shivananda had great inspiration there. Swami Shivananda we already mentioned before, and he desired to have a place there. There was somebody who had a dream which said, I have to give some land to a holy person, and when he found out that Swami Shivananda was looking, he said, this is the man, and gave the land. The ashram itself is on a very small place, but in front, many acres of tea estates are there. And they get their income from the tea, and they harvest the tea there in large quantities. So, a remarkable place. But special for me because Mahapurush Maharaj was there. Another speciality was this, and that is that the person who was there from the early days, he was a remarkable scholar, a man called Swami Chidbhavananda. It is his Bhagavad Gita that we study every Tuesday. And
another reason was Goodwin Samadhi.
Yes. So Goodwin was the stenographer. J.J. Goodwin was Vivekananda's stenographer. Vivekananda spoke so quickly that they couldn't find a stenographer that could catch up with him. And so they employed a man called Goodwin, who was British born, but we won't hold that against him. He was born in Bath, and not in a Bath, in Bath the place. And he not only was an efficient stenographer and captured much of what we have in the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, but he was very youthful. And he may well have dashed across the corner of Ireland with Swami Vivekananda, we don't know, going to his place in Somerset. But that aside, he had poor health. He decided, by the way, he became such an admirer and a follower of Swami Vivekananda that he said, I'll only take enough salary that will sustain me, and I won't take the salary that would be standard. I won't make any profit from this, I'll just take what is sufficient. So he did that, but unfortunately his health wasn't good, and at the young age of 28 years of age, he passed away in Uttakamund. There's a memorial there established, and I have photographs which I can circulate on the chat. I haven't had time to consolidate all my photographs. And there you'll see a memorial to him with 4 sides to it at St. Thomas Church, which was built in 1860-something, 1867 probably, something like that. Very old church. And then, of course, coming back to Bangalore, if you happen to go there are several features you need to look out for. One is the rock on which Holy Mother sat. She stayed there for about 11 days, I think, or 4 days maybe. In 1911, she went and stayed there for 4 days and sat on the rock to watch the sun going down. And naturally, this is now a very sacred spot. Another thing was Swami Vivekananda in his wandering days sat on a bench. They managed to recover that and install that there as well. But for me, the whole atmosphere there, a huge hostel housing 100 boys, not from Bangalore, but from the area, underprivileged boys staying in a hostel and being educated there. And the singing is remarkable. You have never heard Vedic chanting and singing such as you'll hear there. Mysore is a special place. It was established in 1924. It was the place where remarkable giants of the Ramakrishna order sat, and they were selected, and it was called the Mysore Study Circle. And there we find the monk who influenced me tremendously, Swami Nisrasananda. He's there, his photo is there. And many of the giants, Swami Ranganathananda, Swami Nikitananda, Sheshananda, and so on, all these giants were there. And a remarkable photograph with all of them is there too. And Mysore is a beautiful place, but there is a school, Vidyashila, which covers almost 100 acres of land. A huge, huge school with accommodation, a hostel, boys school. And I don't want to delay you much longer, but I wanted just to read you out the extent of this school. I didn't mention Narendrapur while we're talking of large institutions, but Narendrapur is a huge place with, 40 acres or something of land there. Probably more, I don't know. But it has agricultural college, it has a mechanics college, it has, I addressed on a youth day, I was there and I addressed a student audience of 2,500. And these were shifting. When I say shifting, 2,500 students sat, and then at a certain time, segments of them went away, and other segments filled their place, like that. And all because, you see, around this youth day, which was on a Sunday, but because of school days, they put it onto the following day also, and made a big celebration, big cultural program. So that's another thing. This great place at Mysore, if I can't find it easily, I'll just...
There is an index in the back.
Oh, right. Yes.
Alphabetical.
Yeah, but I actually marked it, so Mysore. Yeah, Mysore. Yes. So just very, very briefly. Publication of books, mainly in Kannada, monthly magazine and so on, but Sri Ramakrishna Vidyashala, a residential higher secondary school for boys, stands on an extensive plot of land. It's quite near the ashram, about 5 minutes walk from the ashram. It had 428 students in the year we're talking about, 2017-2018. It has a library, 21,000 books, an astronomical observatory, a computerized telescope, a knowledge park, and a nature classroom. Audio-visual theatre, bakery, dairy. Many of these have their own dairies and their own produce, of course. For example, Varanasi, Kankal is on 20 acres of land. A swimming pool, 22 playgrounds, including an outdoor stadium, an indoor stadium, a multi-gym, and an NCC unit. And one of our devotees, Vahini, in her youth, she used to do athletics there. Then there's on the thing, we are on 14 acres, moral and spiritual education, a primary institute for higher education working in the field of imparting human values. Institute is recognized as a nodal center for values education by Ministry of Human Resource Development. 2-year BEd, Bachelor of Education course, with moral and spiritual education as one of the compulsory subjects. Library, short-term values education, personality development, rural and tribal welfare work. in Belumat, or just outside it, or on the same kind of premises, of course, there is a registered, acknowledged university at which we stayed, incorporating the sciences and also Sanskrit and culture and language and various subjects like that, and astronomy as well. They have an observatory. And then another one which is I also addressed across the road. So these are huge, huge institutions. So the purpose of telling you this is to understand how Swami Vivekananda's ideal of service and rejuvenation of India is taking place on a hands-on practical level. And that itself is inspiring. And the places that we visit all have this holy vibration, which you will catch. It's a bit like influenza, you can't avoid it. You'll catch it, and that's worthwhile. So all of these things, just under a few notes anyway, that I wanted to share with you. Om Shanti, 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 peace, 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 peace.